So my brother said, we cannot survive a second winter there. There's no way we can do it. And if we cannot survive, only alternative is the war is not over, is we have to escape. He told me that at the end of the first winter that we were in Poland. Now, as I mentioned before, he died on the 14th of May. And during the summer, I came back a little bit to, not to energy, because energy we didn't have, but I must say even, I don't know the word is right, I benefited from the death of my brother. People had pity on me. From the kitchen, they gave me sometimes a little bit of soup, because we were always two together. I was the little boy, and he was the father-like. So they gave me a little soup, this and that. In the summer, helping the son out, revigorated me a little bit.
People felt sorry for you and gave you like a little extra where they could.
Yes, yes. And that's exactly what I meant. Yeah. So, and the summer was going on, and I was thinking about what my brother said to me was holy, was a testament. We had learned, the Recheres, we had learned to respect the oldest at home, and he was my oldest, he was my father for all intent and purpose. And I figured if he said we have to escape, that's the only way. So I got daring, and I approached a friend of my brother, which means there was a man who was 5-7 years older than me. And since I couldn't tell him anything, you're always afraid somebody could report to the Germans what you say. So I said to him, one day I will escape. Will you go with me? Because when my brother thought of escaping, we were two. Here I was by myself. So when I told this man, he was a Parisian. I remember his name more or less, but I couldn't find him in the book. He didn't come back alive. So he told me, are you crazy? You want to escape now? The war is practically finished. The Russians are advancing now 100 kilometers a day in Romania, Bessarabia. The war will be over very, very soon. It's crazy to think about escaping. So I had to leave it like that. But when you are hesitant and by yourself and you want to escape, it puts a bug in your mind. Maybe you are wrong. And I started thinking, maybe he's right. So in order to get over it, I said, I have to put myself a limit. Since I cannot spend another winter in camp and survive, before the winter I must escape. So how far can I stretch it before I make the step? So I decided, you know, I believe in dates. I remember dates very easily. I remembered 11th of November 1918, there was an armistice. Maybe the Allies will try to get this war finished also, because they're advancing so fast, the Russians at that time. Also, during the summer, the Allies had already débarqué, or you say, in North Africa. They had landed in North Africa. So I said, maybe it's going to be the end. So I gave myself a limit, November 11. If it's not finished, then I must escape and fast. In the meantime, I started preparing myself for that. So what does preparing consist of? First of all, you have to be dressed to escape in the winter. But as I was in the camp, in the summer, I got long johns, and in the winter, I got the short ones. Now, it looks crazy, but since I was not one of the leaders hid themselves first. You know, those who are in charge of the camp, those in charge of a barrack, those in charge of work, and so on. These people are the elite from the camp. And when it comes to clothing, they help themselves first. So in the summer, they had short johns, but they had long ones. So I started hiding them. And I managed to hide 3 pairs of long underwear, which I hid in a very normal place because I had we didn't have any comfort on any commodes or so on, you can imagine. I only had my straw bag, my mattress, which was made of straw.
You didn't exactly have a cupboard to put things in.
No, I didn't have a cupboard either, not exactly. And so I put 1 pair of johns after the other, although with regular, how do you say, controls, what was going on in the room and in the bed, in your mattress and so on. But I managed to put 3 tops and 3 bottoms away for the winter, in case I want to escape. There was nothing else that could lead the Germans to the fact they want to escape, and I thought to myself, if they catch it, because they control that, I will say in the winter I get the short one, so I put them aside to have it for the winter. So I organized myself this way, and when the November 11 arrived, nothing had happened. It was already cool, not to say cold. And I found myself bound by a promise that I made to myself. So I said, now you have to decide. So I started thinking my upbringing. I remember as a child, I always heard at home that Tuesday is a lucky day. Don't ask me why, I don't know. But I heard Tuesday is a lucky day, so I said, I'm going to escape at Tuesday. And I didn't look at my calendar because I didn't have one. But the only thing I can tell you is the 11th of November, I decided that it will be Tuesday, November 23rd, 1943. If we had a calendar, we could check if I'm right on the Tuesday. But that's the way it was. So to escape wasn't easy. There was no way that you would escape from the camp. You had all the Germans guarding you there. They could shoot at you any time. There was no chance whatsoever. So my only alternative was to escape from the workplace. Since I worked on tracks, and we were 400 men, more or less, working. You had 50 dropped off here, 20 here, and the Germans were near every bundle, but they were also around the place where we were working at. So me being at that time a lasher is the guy who checks on the bolts between the two tracks.
And tightens them.
Tightens them, that's right. So I was a lasher, and I was allowed, of course, to work on the tracks. I can tell you can walk with my eyes closed on tracks, and I will go from one wooden traverse to the other, no problem. I'm used to it. So I decided I'm going to hide myself somewhere where we work. So I looked out, and I found you have these wooden boxes where you put the shovels and the picks and so on, with padlocks, because at night they didn't want it to be stolen. At night, they had the men walking around to make sure nothing is stolen of the material. So I decided I'm going to hide myself in an open place rather than a locked place. So I would say around 1 o'clock or so in the afternoon, on 23rd of November, I was walking around. I looked right and looked left. There was nobody around. And I walked in fast into a wooden barrack which had cement bags. The door was half open. I left it half open, and I went right into the corner as far as I could in that corner to make myself very small and stay there. I can tell you one thing, cement is extremely cold, extremely cold. Now, the barrack was not a house. You had in between the planks, you could see through lights, etc. And I waited for the end of the day. Now, we knew in camp that when it's dark, we have to go back to camp. That's the law they have to avoid evasions. Escapes. And so I was there sitting, not sitting, standing and waiting in my little corner. And when we had to leave workplace, you had to line up like in camp in the morning, 5 by 5, and count yourself. And when they started counting, one guy was missing. The Appellplatz, they call it in German, the place where the appel, the control is made, where the people are counted, was not far from where I was. And I heard the things going on there. And then they started looking. In German, they said, Landau, Landau, where he was, etc. I had claimed that I had a headache. And that I was going, while working, I'll go pass by where the doctor who worked with us was and ask him what to do. This was my excuse. I said I have a headache. I played it all morning. And I passed by. It's true. I spoke to the doctor, told him about my headache, and on my way back, I went into that barrack there. Finally, at night, I could hear this. They started yelling at me. There was one guard, I remember in his face, because we called him Fernandel. Fernandel was a French actor on television with a long, long face. And this guy had a long, long face, like this French actor, and we called him Fernandel. Fernandel was yelling. He was angry because they get held when somebody escapes. So I could hear from there. A few soldiers stayed there with their weapons turned to the inmates, assembled, and the others went on the lookout. And you may believe me or not, across from me was this wooden crate with the shovels, with the padlock. I heard it being opened. Checked, I wasn't there. I think they touched my door, but didn't go in. There was no electricity in it. It was just cement bags. But they didn't go in, and I was so close against the corner, I felt I could play that I fell asleep there or something, if the case they catch me. But they didn't get in there, and it lasted for quite a while. I heard it yelling and looking and so on. And finally, they had to go home. They had to go back to the camp. My next problem was for me to avoid getting caught by the guy who was making his tour with his lantern to check around. They call it a Baustelle, a field where you build, where you work. Mm-hmm. So he was making his tours there.
A construction site.
Construction site, that's right, the Baustelle, yes. But you see, I worked only on these professions while in Germany, so I know the terms in German, not in English, and even less in French. So, of course, I had no watch. The watches had been taken away from us even in France before we came to Germany. And I tried to figure out how long it takes through the splits between the planks of wood. I could see the light when it was going through. I tried to figure out how long it takes to know how long I had for me to escape, really to go to the train. Now, as I told you, we worked on the tracks. There were plenty of coal wagons there because we were in the coal area. I noticed, because I was already a connoisseur, I was there already more than a year working on the tracks, that whatever you saw at night, it was gone in the morning. So my real escape, in fact, came at that time, not during the day, getting out of that cement box, cement barrack, and go to the train. So I ran to the train, and I saw a wagon with coal powder.
Coal dust, yeah.
Coal dust. Yeah. And it's open wagons, of course. They throw in the coal to the top. And it was like a mountain. It was full, full, full. So I went in there, and I laid down along the edge of the wagon, but the coal kept coming down on me. This dust came coming down on me. It was burying me. I said I could dig down to go down, but it'd be either buried or fall overboard when the train goes. So this was no solution. I was fussy. I wanted a better wagon than that. So I went along the train. It was in the railroad station of Koranowice, of Borzigwerk, sorry. I was in Borzigwerk. Yes. And the gare, the railroad station, was across much further there, and there were many tracks there for the trains to cross each other, etc. I don't know if the term is right, but for trains to go one way and the other way. I call this crossing. So I found another wagon, and the Germans are very well organized. So there was a label marked on it, zur Reparatur, which means for repair. Now, on the German freight wagons, you also have like 3-4 steps on either side of the wagon with a platform and 3-4 steps to go down the other side. So I went and looked. It was empty. It was empty. I said, that's good enough for me, better than being buried by the coal. So I went again. I went in a very little corner there because once the train starts, there is bridges in the station and lights there to enable people to go from one side of the tracks to the other and so on. So I went in my corner. I waited for the train to leave. So it didn't take that long. In the middle of the night, the train left, and we were going to Reparatur. It was marked Gleiwitz on it, which is a big center, railroad center, traffic center. So I think it must have been 3, 4 a.m. when we arrived in Gleiwitz. When the train stopped, I said to myself, wait until there is no people moving around it. Then you get out and you switch to another destination. I was arrived on my first destination. So while I was waiting there, I heard steps, of course. People were walking around. And one stupid German came with his lantern, and I could see the light. He was looking like I did before at the label, zur Reparatur. I don't know what he wanted to see, what has to be repaired or what. And he went up the steps and had his lantern right on my face. And this was the end of my freedom.